श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। क्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्ये सर्वदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां भिषजे भवरोगिणां निधे सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। मूकं करोति वाचालं भङ्गं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमां वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। व्यासाय विष्णुरूपाय व्यासरूपाय विष्णवे नमो वै ब्रह्मणवे वासिष्ठाय नमो नमः। नारायणं श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमः भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणे स्वयं व्यासेन कृतितां पुराणमदिनां मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीमष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनसन्दधां भगवद्गीते वेद्भेषणीम्। नारायणपरो व्यक्तादण्डमव्यक्तसम्भवं मण्डस्यान्तस्त्विमे लोकाः सप्तद्वीपा च मेदिनीम्। अवतीर्णश्च कालट्यां केदारेन्द्रहृदश्च चतुष्पीठप्रतिष्ठादाय यतः चङ्गरो गुरु शङ्कारूपेण मच्चित्तं पङ्कीकृतमबोध्य किङ्करे सुधामाय शङ्कराचार्यमाश्रये. So we're looking at last time we were looking at 47th shloka. Karmanye vadigharaste mahaplesh kadachana ma karma balaheturbha mahate sangostu karmani. So your right is for action alone, never the results. And again, don't have inclination for inaction. So that's the short summary. But before we go there have been some questions coming through in terms of it is confusing at times because there is a lot of concepts that's mentioned in these shlokas, and second chapter is one of the most difficult chapters in Bhagavad Gita because the topic moves from one to another very quickly, broadly. So that's why, and also what is the link between a shloka to another shloka, right? So that question also has come. So just to recap, I'll just do a quick recap. Hope it will help any questions like that, and also it will help if someone is already aware and understood fully. That's fine. It's think that this is a repeat, but if it is not, it might help. So going back to the beginning, right? So the whole objective of Bhagavad Gita is explaining that Paramatma Darshana. So it is explaining that attaining that path to moksha. And moksha is nothing but realization that the Atma in this body, same as Paramatma, realization that I am that Atma and not this body. So that realization, coming to that realization conclusion and staying in that. So it is not just once realizing, because we all at times say, yeah, we all same, we all have the same Atma, we all have the same Paramatma, right? So that many say we all equal, we all same, we all have the same Atma. But continuously thinking that is different. Okay, that's why it's called jnana nishta, karma nishta. Okay, that nishta means adherence to that steadfastness. So it's always in that thought. It is not changing. Okay, we say we are all equal, but that is your house, this is my house. Okay, so that's when we say we, that includes me as well. Okay, so that's how we are. So that's why there is that even though verbally we say those words, we are not there. Okay, that's the first step. So when one has this realization, they are now completely renounced, and they are in that thinking about everything, seeing everything as equal. Okay, everything they see Paramatma in everything, including in them, and they themselves feel that. Now, the path to that is broadly, there are two paths. One is nivritti, another one is pravritti dharma, right? So nivritti dharma is the jnana marga, knowledge, path of knowledge. That's renunciation right? And we looked at, as part of the introduction, we looked at, for example, Nivritti Dharma, Sanakadi rishis, right? Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana, Sujata, and they went in that path, right? And the other one is Pravritti Marga, which is the following the Karma Marga, Karma Yoga. So like Marichi, Atri, and other rishis of Brahma's sons, they went in that path. So that's broadly two paths, right? So now coming to Bhagavad Gita, how this explains that into two parts, right? So the first, the shloka starting in this Sankhya Yoga, shloka starting 11th to 30th, 11th shloka to 30th shloka. So where 11th shloka, Bhagavan says, responds to Arjuna, saying that Ashochan, Ashochastvam, Prajnavadamsha Bhasha, from the, you talk like a, you think like this, and you talk like an expert, you somebody who knows, but like a pandita, prajnavadam, you talk like that. And then till 30th shloka, dehi nityam avadhyoyam dehe sarvasya bharata, right? So till that shloka, from 11th to 30th shloka, the concept explained is called Sankhya. Right? Sankhya is Shuddha Atma Tattva Jnana, we looked at previously, right? So that explains this Paramatma Swarupa or Atma, Paramatma Rupa, how it is, right? So we looked at, I'm just going to quote some of the shlokas, not every one of them, like from Nasato Vidyate Bhava, Na Bhava Vidyate Sada. So this Atma, it doesn't have any bhava, okay, right? Any parts in it. And similarly, it's Avinashi to Tadvidhi, Yena Sarvavidam Tadam. So this is Avinashi. This is never destruction, undestructible. And there is no Vinasha for it. And it is Sarvavidam Tadam. It's everywhere. It's pervaded everywhere. And then Najayate Namriyate. It does not die, it does not get born. And Avinashi, Anashino Aprameya. So it is again Anashi. It does not have any nasha in it, any end or destruction in it. Aprameya, Ajo, Nitya, Shashvata, Purana, all those things. And na hanyate, so it does not get killed. And Veda Vinashinam Nityam Yena Ajamavyayam. So this is Avinashi, Nitya, Aja, Avyaya. And then we looked at, for example, Nainam Chindanti Shastrani, Nainam Dahati Pavaga. So weapons do not cut it, Agni, fire does not burn it, water does not make it wet, and all those kind of things, right? So this is Atma, explaining Atma Swarupa, or the form, or how to describe the Atma, right? Again, the reason different methods used, once it says that it does not have any parts or limbs or things like that, and another time it says it does not get hurt by any weapons or burnt by fire, and water cannot make it wet, or sometimes it does not have birth, or it does not have death, or it does not have destruction, all these things, because that Atma Swarupa is very difficult to describe. So you have to describe it. We have to use all these adjectives saying that whatever you think, it is not that, right? So that's what the Sankhya shlokas here between 11 to 30th are explaining. So avyaktom, avachin, avyaktom, avyaktoyam, achintyoyam, avikaryo namuchyate, all these shlokas. So it's avyakta, achintya, you cannot think, and it does not go through any vikara, so it changes, all those things, right? So it explains that Sankhya, that Atma Tattva, it explains that Tattva, right? So Paramatma Tattva. That's the shlokas. Then there is a set of shlokas between 31st and 38th. 38th shloka. So 31st shloka, if you have a copy of second Sankhya Yoga, look at this. So 31st shloka starts with Swadharma Upecha Aveksha Navikampitum. And then 38th shloka, Sukadakke Same Krutva Labha Labha Jaya Jaya. Right? So there, Bhagavan explains Swadharma, the duties. Okay, purely the duties from a laukika, the worldly point of view. What is the basic you have to do? Right? So this is again Sri Shankaracharya and also Madhusudan Saraswati and many other commentators, Advaita commentators, they clearly said that this set of shlokas from 31st to 38th shloka explaining about the core duties of an individual is not the main theme of Bhagavad Gita. So main theme is moksha, right? Core duties, performing the core duties is not the main theme of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita's main theme is pravritti dharma or nivritti dharma, in those two things, right? So just performing one's duty is not the main theme, main topic of discussion of this Gita, Shastra. So, but it is explained to remind again that even if you think as a basic thing, Arjuna, what you have to do, again, when Bhagavan says, Arjuna, what you have to do, he's telling all of us what you have to do is follow your basic duties. What is your swadharma? What is your dharma as per your varna, your ashrama? What is your status? Based on that, perform those duties, right? So there Arjuna, Bhagavan reminds him that as a Kshatriya, you have to do this. If you don't this, you will get ill fame and all those kind of things. He explains that. So 31st to 38th shloka, he is explaining that duties, basic duty. So again, for us, it's a reminder that before we go into Jnana Yoga, okay, Jnana, Sankhya, and thinking about that Paramatma is like this and this Paramatma is in this form or it does not get, it is Aja, Nitya, Shashvata, Purana, all these kind of things. When we start thinking about that, before we go there, there are different steps, right? So the first step is Swadharma, doing your duties. Right? That's the first step. And then the next step comes, which is karma yoga. So you are doing karma, right? Swadharma means you are doing your karma, your duties. But the next thing is that karma becomes karma yoga. Okay, when it becomes yoga is when one does that karma without any desires, right? So that's where it starts in the 40th shloka, 39th, 40th shloka, where is it? So again, from karma point of view, Bhagavan says that neha kavanashosti pratyaya vayo na vidyate. And he also says vyasatmika buddhi rekaiha kurunandana. So single pointedly, you focus on that Paramatma whenever you're doing your work. So while he is explaining that with the single pointed mind on that Paramatma, you do your duty, then you will not, any sins or anything that's coming from that karma will not attach to you. When he was saying that, he also gives a warning that remember, there are a lot of people who talk about in the 41st shloka, for example, he talks about yamimam pushpitam vacham pravadyanti paschitaha and so on, right? So there is flowery talk that comes out. People say that Vedas are created for kriya vishesha bahulam in bhoga ishwarya gatim prati and so on in the 43rd shloka, right? So he says that when you are thinking about karma and paramatma, people say that karma you do to gain this kind of bhoga ishwarya, right? People say that that's why you should perform these rituals, duties, whatever it is because of that Bhoga Ishvara Gati. So because of those things, or Yogaksham, so you to maintain, to acquire something or maintain those things. So it is for that, but it is not that, right? So don't do your karma thinking that you are going to get wealth or Bhoga, Ishwarya, Gati, all these things. Don't do karma think expecting those having those desires, because many people will talk about those flowery talk, pushpitam vacham, he says in the 41st shloka, right? If you go back, so Bhagavan says that do your karma focusing on vyavasatmika buddhi, so that means single pointed mind, thinking about paramatma only when you do your karmas, and don't get distracted by all these things you hear about karma is Vedas or talking karma only about uh, to gain something back and with all those desires and things. That don't do that. And how you do it is nistrayaguna, do nishkama karma without any desire. So that's why he says in the 45th shloka, he says nistrayagunyo bhava, nirdvando bhava, nityasatvasto bhava, niryogakshama bhava, atmavan bhava, right? He says that. So when to attain that kind of state, you have to nistrayaguna, you should have not have any kamas, any desires in that. Nirdvanda, no differentiation. Success or failure does not make any difference to you. Jaya, jayo, victory or loss does not make happiness or sorrow, do not make any difference. Nitya sattva, purity, pure, and niryogakshema, again, do not think about acquiring something or protecting something that you already have. Atma anubhav, think about only about Atma, right? That's the only thing you should look. That's what he says in the 45th shloka. Then he says, what is the benefit of doing those things? So now you said, do not have any desire. So I used to do all these pujas, hoping that I'm going to get something. Now you're telling me, just do it as a duty and do it just to please Bhagavan, but not to expect in return anything. That's what you're telling me. So what is the benefit of that nishkama karma? He explains in the 46th shloka, where he says, Yavanartha udabhane sarvata samplutodake, right? So it gives that as a example, saying that when someone has flood all around or a huge lake, he has a huge water body access to him, what is the use of a small tank or a pot full of water for him when he has all that thing? So when the one reaches this Brahmananda, this final realization, when one reaches that happiness one gets is nothing compared to that happiness is so much that it includes all the little happiness one could ask for. So whether it is a house or a family or a whatever one could wish for, right? So all those happiness is nothing compared to that Brahmananda one is going to get when that realization comes. That's why Bhagavan says that in that 46th shloka, do the merits he describes of this nishkama karma, this karma yoga's benefit. Now, Arjuna or anyone like us might be thinking, okay, Bhagavan is saying do nishkama karma yoga, and nishkama karma yoga, if I do all those things, I'll get jnana, knowledge, this realization, and things like that. That's a long path, right? Because our mind thinks about shortcuts. We start thinking about what can I do now, right? So how do I get there quickly? Is there an escalator to, instead of climbing these 10, 20 steps, is there an escalator? Is there a lift? That's what we are looking for, right? So we might think that, can I just go directly, instead of doing all this karma, nishkama karma, right? Without any desires, performing this, don't know how many lives I have to do this. If I have to do all this before I realize that, okay, that kind of jnana knowledge comes to me, that realization comes, and then I maintain that knowledge. It might take, I don't know how many births, right? It might happen in one birth, it might happen in 100 births. Don't know, I don't know, right? So if it takes that long, one might think, why not I just directly do the knowledge path, jnana marga directly, right? So that's why Bhagavan says in the 47th shloka, that's where we come now. He says, Karmanyevadhikaraste ma paleshu kadachana. Your right is for action alone, never the results. And ma karma palaheturbhu ma te sangostu karmani. So again, do not become the agent of the results of the action. And again, do not have an inclination for inaction, not doing something, thinking that there is no, you cannot think that when I say do not desire results, you might think that I can not do anything, just sit there and hopefully one day the knowledge will come, I will realize Paramatma and I will attain moksha, right? So don't do that. So again, I think last time I was explaining, just to go into a little bit more on before I go into this shloka details in detail, details again. The karma, what we talk about in regular world, in regular conversation, is there is two different things. One is again karma when one is performed, right? So this is important as one is performs, as I said a few minutes ago, is performing karma swadharma as a duty. That's one thing. First step. The second step is the karma performing as a without any desires. That is the nishkama karma. That is the karma yoga. Right. So now the karma, what we talk in the uh, in our regular discussion, regular talks, and everything is based on what one experiences, right? So, like for example, we say he's experiencing his karmas, right? Or if someone does something, some evil person is there, they may be having all the luxury and happiness, and we think they are very happy, even though they are of evil conduct, right? Wicked conduct. Or there may be somebody who's doing lot of good things. They do pujas 7 days a week and daily spend 5 hours, okay, doing meditation or chanting something and bhajans or whatever it is, and they may be going through a lot of sufferings. And we might say this karma does not work, right? It's not working. But what we are experiencing, one experiences that result comes out of that karma is known as prarabdha karma, right? So whatever one gets, I think last time I gave an example of bank balance, all right? So in one life, let's take it as a uh, every month as a one life, right? So one born beginning of the month, death end of the month, right? You have a bank balance that runs throughout your life, many years. So at beginning of the month, you have some balance that may be good karma, positive sins, and punyas, okay, virtue and sins together in there. So you will get a portion of that saying that this is your spending money in this month. So in this life, okay, you spend this. So you might experience happiness or uh, sorrow, grief, whatever you experience that, that's because that was what given to you. And in that life, in that month, you might earn more, you might spend more. Okay. So you might accumulate more virtue, punya, you might accumulate more uh, sins. So that's known as whatever you accumulate in that lifespan. Here in our example, bank example, money example, it's the dollars. Okay, whatever one accumulates or spends is known as agami karma. So prarabdha is what you experience throughout the life that comes with you for that lifespan. Agami is what you accumulate or spend, add or uh, uh, what you add, okay, what you accumulate in that. It could be positives or negatives you accumulate. Then there is a balance, I said, in the bank, right? So that is known as sanchita karma. Okay, so that's the one that remains. And later in Bhagavad, we come what happens to one realizes there is a bank balance, right? And if that person is no longer interested in that bank balance, what happens? If one has realized what happens to that punya or papa, what happens to that person? So we'll come to that explanation in detail. But for now, the karma, when someone says I'm experiencing that or this person is experiencing that and things like that, that's all related to prarabdha karma. Again, the question might come to mind saying that can we change the prarabdha karma? Can we change? Is it in this life itself? Can I change it? Right? It is possible. Okay, there are explanations, but then again, we might not know. There may be some sanchita karma that's already there. Okay, we accumulated wealth that's already there. Okay, we may be just fast tracking that, experiencing that goods or bad, whatever it is, we may be experiencing that early. Okay, or it becomes too much, then it already starts experiencing in this life itself. So you have given a balance to spend, you're given a money to spend in this month, you spend everything in the first 10 days, you run out of money, right? So then you may have to borrow more. So you might have to go to your bank balance again and borrow more. So that might, whatever is supposed to happen in the next lives, you might experience more because you've been so bad in this life, right? So, I mean, when you say you, it happens to me as well and everybody, okay? We all. So that's one way of looking at karma. The second thing is focusing on, when we say karma, is here what we are talking about is mainly in the three different things: what is done, what is one is doing or going to do. So that's in this life, what one does is classified broadly into three categories. I think I started talking about this. So nitya, naimittika, and kamya karma. Nitya karma is a compulsory duties and rites that one has to perform. Like, for example, Brahmana waking up early and doing Sandhya Vandana or Agnihotra and those kind of things that one has to do, Nitya Karma. And there is no punya coming from doing those things. There is no virtue accumulated by doing those things. But if one does not do, then that will lead to sin. Okay, so Nitya Karmas are a must, compulsory duties one has to perform. It is not, I'll just give a Brahmana as an example, Sandhya as an example. It applies to everybody every day. For example, waking up in the morning before sunrise and taking bath and doing prayers and all these kind of things, or looking when a Brahmana comes, touching their feet and all those things when you come across a Brahmana, all these things, little things which Shastra says one has to do, they all Nitya Karmas. If you do it without any desires, okay? So that's Nitya Karmas one has to do. If one does not do, then it will result in sin. I just gave broad examples, okay? So you could say Brahmana doing Sandhya Vandana as an example, or you could say you come across a Brahmana, and if you don't give respect to that Brahmana, that itself is a sin, okay? But you have to give respect. That's your duty, fundamental duty, and one has to perform those rights and duties. So that's Nitya Karmas. Then the second one is Naimittika. Naimittika is the special rights, the occasional rights and duties performed, for example, Shraddha or things like that, things that one performs, they are Naimittika Karma. So this again between Nitya Karmas and the other one, which is the last one I'm going to explain, is Kame Karmas. Okay, so it is between those two things, Naimittika Karmas. It is again, could be compulsory or it could be based on certain desires, say vratas and things like that one might be doing. The last one is type Nitya, Naimittika, and the last one is Kamya. Okay, so Kamya Karma is the rites or something that's performed, a ceremony is performed with selfish motives, with desires. Like, for example, performing in the olden days, horse sacrifices performed with the desire to go for heaven. Okay, or you might be doing a vrata to attain have a child, or to attain puja to get good marks in the exam, or to mrityunjaya japa to get good health, or whatever, right? All these kind of things. So again, Nitya karma and Kama karma, there is only simple difference. The difference is the motives of it. Okay, Nitya karma, if one does without any desires and things like that, that becomes the duties one performs is Nitya karma. And then again, Kama karma, Nitya karma can become a Kama karma if one does, for example, morning you're doing prayers and things like that, or touching a Brahmana's feet, as I said, when you come across a Brahmana, right? So that's your compulsory duty. Doing that, we do that. That's Nitya karma. But if I'm touching that Brahmana's feet, expecting that he is going to bless me and I'm going to benefit from it, that becomes a Kama karma. I have some desires when I touch it. I touch it because I'm expecting something in return. That's desire. Okay, that becomes Kama karma. So the only difference between, well, the main difference between Nitya and Kama karma is that desire, the motives, why one does those rites and ceremonies or duties, whatever it is, why one does that. So what Krishna is talking here, telling Arjuna, is when you do those karmas, whether it is compulsory or whatever, occasional or whatever one does, or as a swadharma, one's own prescribed duties one has to do, when you're doing that, you do it as a nishkama karma. That means without any desires. Okay, think that it is your compulsory duty, you have to do this, and do not expect anything in return. Because when one does a kama karma, there is always sin attached to it. Even if one performs a horse sacrifice, Ashwamedha yajna, or even a japa or whatever it is, one does it, there is always sin attached to a kama karma. Okay, but when one does without desires, then there is no sin attached to it, and you may get the results as part of that. By performing the nitya karmas, one may get positive outcomes. Okay, which are nitya karmas or nishkama karmas, without any desires one performs, still one might get heaven because of that. Okay, after the death or next birth, one might get a birth in a good family where they have opportunities to expand, extend their knowledge. Okay, continue that, those kind of things. One might get that, but that's not the objective. That's not one desire for, because one is doing this nishkama karma purely to please Bhagavan. Okay, which is what we will come to in a second. So here, karmanyevadhikaraste mahapalesha kadachana. So what Bhagavan says is, your right, your adhikara is karmani eva. It is only for action. Your action for rights, karma alone is your right, not for knowledge. So Shankaracharya here makes it clear when Bhagavan says karmani eva, karmaneva, when action alone is your right, Shankaracharya adds here saying that na jnana nishtayam. Shankaracharya explains that not for that steadfastness in knowledge. It is not for jnana, because jnana is one who has passed this stage. When one is covered in this ajnana, ignorance, the right that person has is for karma alone. That's what Bhagavan is saying. So even there, when you are engaged in that action, you have, Bhagavan says that when you are engaged in that action, you have never under any condition, whatever that condition. So when you are engaged in that action, a right for the results of that action may you not have the hankering of those results in the action. So Bhagavan says that your right is for actions alone, and when you are engaged in those actions, you do not have the rights for the results of those actions. Okay, you may not have those desire for those results. Okay, that's what he says. So whenever you have the desires for the fruits of the actions, you will become the agent of acquiring the results of that action. Okay, yada karma paleshu trishna te syat kada karma phala prapte hetu syah evam ma karma palaya hetu bhuhu. So whenever one has that hankering for those fruits of that action, you will become the agent of acquiring the results of action. Okay, so then Arjuna might ask, even if there is no such idea that this is to be enjoyed by me, so even if one thinks that I'm going to enjoy these results of this, the action will still produce its own results according to its inherent powers, right? Like I said earlier, even if like for example Sandhyavana, okay, so when Brahmana does Sandhyavana as a Nitya Karma without expecting any results from it, it performs his Sandhyavana, it still produces the results, like he might get a good birth next time, or he might enjoy the time in heaven, and because of those things, right? So Arjuna might think that even if one does not think like this, then still might produce the results. So Bhagavan, that's why he says that do not become an agent of acquiring those results of action, because when one engages in an action by being impelled by the thirst for the results of that action, then he becomes the cause for the production of the results of that action. Okay, so he says that do not become the agent who is because when you become the agent, you will, when you have the results, you will become the agent of performing that those results. So yada hi karma pala trishna prayukta karmani pravartate tata karma palasyaiva janmano hetur bhavet. So because of that, when that results are there, then you will have to take another birth to experience those things. So that means the cycle continues, the samsara continues. So to get out of that, you have to perform the actions without any desires. So then you might think that if the results of the action are not desired, what is the need of performing any action and involving and going through all this pain? right? So just sit here, morning, stay in the bed till 10 o'clock, right? What is the point of waking up before sunrise and taking bath in this cold weather and all those kind of things? Why I should do? Because karma is not going to morning Sandhyavandana is not going to give me any results. Right? So I'm not expecting any results from it. Why should I wake up early? I can wake up at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock whenever the breakfast smell comes, right? So why should I do this? Bhagavan says that may you not have that sangha inclination, that may you not have that inclination akarmani for inaction, thinking that if the results are not to be desired, what is the need for work which involves pain? Why should I do this? So do not have that inclination of akarmani. So akarmani is inaction. Do not think that just by not doing the karma is the right thing. So two, three messages here. One is your rights is for actions alone, karma alone. And when you do that karma, have no desire and don't think that you can sit idle. Okay, you can inaction, you can not do anything because you have to do your karma. So the message is you have to do your karma. That karma has to be without any desires. So nishkama karma. So now Arjuna or anyone listening to this might ask if the action or the karma is not performed, not to be undertaken by one who is under the impulsion of fruits of action, how then they are to be undertaken? How that such a karma should be undertaken? Right? So for this, Bhagavan says in the next shloka, Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyoh samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. By being established in yoga, so that is karma yoga, O Dhananjaya, undertake the actions casting off the attachment and remaining equipoised in success and failure. That uh, equanimity is called yoga. So he says that. So if we look at the meaning of the words, yogastha means being steadfast in yoga, kuru means perform, karmani is duties, sangam means attachment, tyaktva means having abandoned, dhananjaya is Arjuna, siddhi asiddhyo means in success and failure, sama means uh, equipoised, bhutva is becoming, samatvam means equanimity, and yoga means yoga is talking about karma yoga, uchyate is called. So if I think this is nearly time now, so I'll take a stop there. We'll look at this shloka in detail next time. Any